Once, in a small village perched on the edge of a great sea, there lived a woman named Mayowa. Mayowa was big and round like the full moon, her presence as warm as a fire on a cold night. She loved food, cooking it, smelling it, tasting it. Her life revolved around her pots and pans, her spices and herbs. It gives her joy. Mayowa ran a little restaurant on the beach, shaded by palm tree sea, where the salty breeze mingled with the smell of her simmering stews. People traveled from miles away to eat her food. They said her fried fish melted on the tongue, and her crab bisque could make the gloomiest hearts sing. Yet, there was something unusual about her dishes, something almost magical. Those who ate them felt more than full, they felt lighter, happier, and strangely serene, which adds to the misery of the food. One night, as the moon hung low and silver over the water, Mayowa stood by the shore after closing her restaurant. She looked out at the endless waves, her thoughts swirling like the tide. Lately, the whispers in the village had grown louder. People were asking questions about why they felt so odd after eating her meals. Mayowa sighed and sank to the sand. "If only I could make my food even more perfect," she murmured to herself. "Perfect enough that no one would ever question it. Perfect enough to be unforgettable." "You desire perfection," came a soft, lilting voice. Mayowa froze, her eyes darting to the water. A figure emerged from the waves, a young mermaid, with shimmering teal hair and eyes as deep as the ocean itself. Her tail glittered in the moonlight, a cascade of silver and turquoise. She was beautiful, but there was something sharp in her gaze, something ancient. "Who are you?" Mayowa asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I am Zarya," the mermaid said, her lips curving into a smile. "I have been watching you, Mayowa. You're a creator of wonders, yet you long for more. Beautiful and delicious food." Mayowa's heart thudded in her chest. "You've eaten my food," Zarya chuckled. "No, but I have seen what it does to your kind. It takes something from them, doesn't it? A sliver of their spirit, their essence. You mix it into your dishes, and they grow addicted to the taste." Mayowa stiffened, feeling exposed. "I don't take much," she said defensively. "Just enough to make my food extraordinary. But it's not enough for you anymore, is it?" Zarya's voice was smooth as the tide. "You want to create something greater, something divine." Mayowa hesitated, her mouth dry. "What are you offering?" Zarya swam closer, her tail flicking softly in the water. "I can give you what you seek. The ability to create meals so powerful, they'll stir the very souls of those who taste them. But such magic comes at a price." "What price?" Mayowa asked, her eyes narrowing. "The sea is full of energy," Zarya said. "Every wave, every fish, every coral contains a spark of life. I can teach you how to draw from it, to infuse your dishes with the ocean's magic. But in return," she paused, her smile fading, "you must promise to cook for me once a year. A feast, prepared from the most precious ingredients you can find. In this way, we both gain what we desire." Mayowa considered the offer. Cooking for a mermaid sounded strange, even dangerous, but the temptation was too great. She thought of her stews becoming richer, her soups more divine. She thought of her name whispered not just in her village, but across the world. "Fine," she said at last. "Teach me." Zarya extended a delicate hand, webbed between the fingers. Mayowa took it, and a chill ran through her body as if she'd plunged into the sea. "The deal is struck," Zarya said. From that night on, Mayowa's food changed. It wasn't just delicious, it was transcendent. People cried after their first bites, overwhelmed by the emotions her dishes evoked. The flavors carried the essence of moonlit tides, the mystery of the deep. Her fame spread, and soon travelers from distant lands came to taste her magic food. But as the months passed, Mayowa began to notice something unsettling. Her connection to the sea grew stronger, yes, but so did her hunger. Her love of food became an obsession. She began to crave the magical ingredients Zarya had shown her. Rare seaweed that glowed in the dark, pearls ground into powder, and the hearts of certain fish said to carry the memories of the ocean. And then, a year passed. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Mayowa's life revolved around her newfound magic. Her dishes had become legends. Patrons traveled from distant shores to dine at her seaside restaurant. Money clinked in her till, and her fame spread across the land. But all no magic wasn't without its costs. At first, the changes were subtle. Mayowa's love for food, once a joyful passion, grew into an insatiable hunger. She found herself sampling her creations endlessly, savoring each bite not for the taste, but for the power it held. The energy she drew from the sea lingered on her tongue, intoxicating and addictive. Then came the physical changes. Her reflection in the mirror no longer seemed entirely her own. Her skin, once smooth and golden, began to shimmer faintly, as if touched by the scales of a fish. Her black eyes grew brighter, like twin pools of dark water reflecting the moon. Her once soft voice gained an eerie resonance, as though the tides whispered through her words. But it was her dreams that disturbed her most. Each night, Mayowa dreamt of the ocean. She saw herself swimming through coral forests, her legs replaced by a sleek tail that glittered in the light of the deep. She heard the cries of the creatures she had taken from fish, crabs, even the tiny clams whose pearls she ground into her stews. Their voices were mournful, their spirits tangled in the magic she had unleashed. And always, in the darkest corner of her dreams, she saw Zarya watching her. The mermaid's eyes glowed with a knowing intensity. Her lips curled in a faint smile. "You're taking too much," Zarya whispered in those dreams. "The sea does not forget." Mayowa brushed off the dreams as nothing more than her imagination. But the hunger inside her grew. Ordinary ingredients no longer satisfied her. The onions and garlic she once loved seemed dull. The spices from the market failed to stir her soul. Only the magical ingredients Zarya had taught her to use, the glowing seaweed, the salt harvested from stormy waves, the shimmering scales of rare fish could create the flavors she craved. She began venturing out to sea at night, rowing her little boat far from the shore. She cast nets for hours, searching for the rarest catches. Her fingers bled as she harvested sharp corals, and her arms ached from pulling up traps heavy with strange, glimmering creatures. She dove deeper than she ever thought possible, her breath lasting longer than it should, her body moving through the water with unnatural ease. It wasn't long before she realized the sea was changing her. Her skin felt cold to the touch, no matter how warm the sun shone. Her legs ached after long days on land, and she often found herself staring at the water, yearning to sink beneath its surface. Her customers noticed the changes too. "She's not the same," one whispered. "Her food tastes darker," said another. And then there were the strange occurrences. Patrons began to report strange dreams after eating her meals, dreams of drowning, of being swallowed by the ocean, of drifting endlessly in the dark. A fisherman swore he saw Mayowa's reflection in the water while dining at her stall, but the face he saw was not hers. It was the face of a mermaid with sharp teeth and eyes like storm clouds. But Mayowa was preparing to cook for the anniversary. The anniversary of her deal with Zarya approached, and Mayowa's obsession reached its peak. She could think of nothing but the feast she had promised the mermaid. It had to be perfect, more exquisite than anything she had ever created. She began experimenting with forbidden ingredients. She harvested the venom of sea snakes to add a bitter edge to her soups. She captured tiny bioluminescent fish and ground them into a glowing paste. She even stole the eggs of sea turtles, mixing them into her cakes for their richness. But it wasn't enough. The feast must have more, she whispered to herself one stormy night, her hands trembling as she stirred a pot of thick, black stew. It must have life itself. And so, Mayowa turned to the villagers. She began luring them to her restaurant with promises of free meals, feeding them dishes so magical that they fell into trances. While they ate, she chanted softly under her breath, drawing slivers of their essence, their happiness, their memories, their dreams, and stirring it into her pots. Her food grew richer, more powerful, but the villagers began to change. They became lethargic, their laughter dimmer, their eyes clouded with a strange emptiness. Some stopped coming to the restaurant altogether, frightened by the eerie aura that now surrounded Mayowa. On the night of the anniversary, Zarya emerged from the waves just as Mayowa finished setting the table. The feast she had prepared was a masterpiece. Glowing soups, shimmering fish, cakes that sparkled like starlight. The air was thick with the scent of salt and magic, and the dishes pulsed faintly, as if alive. "You've outdone yourself," Zarya said, her voice dripping with approval as she surveyed the spread. Mayowa smiled, but there was a desperation in her eyes. "It wasn't easy," she admitted, "but it's perfect, isn't it?" Exactly what you wanted. Zarya's gaze lingered on Mayowa for a long moment. Yes, she said softly, but at what cost? Mayowa's smile faltered. What do you mean? She asked. You've taken too much, Mayowa, Zarya said, her tone turning cold. The sea is not a bottomless well. Every sliver of life you've stolen comes at a price. The balance must be restored. Mayowa's heart pounded. You didn't say anything about balance, she snapped. You gave me this power. You said I could take what I needed. I said you could take what was freely given, Zarya replied, her eyes narrowing. But you've taken more. You've taken from those who did not offer. You've taken from the sea itself. And now, the sea will take from you. Mayowa's hands trembled as Zarya's words sank in. The sea would take from her. The idea filled her with a cold dread that rooted her to the spot. Around them, the waves grew restless, crashing harder against the shore. The air thickened with the briny scent of salt and something darker, something ancient. I've done nothing wrong, Mayowa said, her voice quivering but defiant. I have only used the power you gave me. If the sea takes, let it take from others, not me. Zarya tilted her head, her teal hair shimmering in the moonlight. The sea does not negotiate. Mayowa, it takes what is owed. And you owe more than you can pay. Mayowa stepped back, shaking her head. No, I won't let it. I've worked too hard, sacrificed too much. This is my life, she says with a scared look. Zarya's expression softened, but there was no pity in her gaze. You made a deal, Mayowa. You sought perfection, but you let your greed taint it. Now, the balance must be restored. With a flick of her tail, Zarya raised a hand, and the waves surged toward the shore. The ground beneath Mayowa's feet began to tremble as water seeped through the cracks in the sand, curling around her ankles like grasping fingers. No, Mayowa screamed, struggling to pull free. The water climbed higher, dragging her closer to the ocean. Her shimmering skin glowed faintly in the moonlight, a sign of the magic she had abused. Wait, Mayowa cried, her voice cracking. You said the sea takes what is owed. Let me make it right. Let me fix it. Zarya paused, her glowing eyes narrowing. You wish to atone, to undo the harm you've caused. Mayowa nodded frantically, the water now up to her knees. Yes, I'll do anything. The mermaid studied her for a long moment before speaking. The balance can only be restored if you give back what you've taken. You must return the spirits you stole, the fragments of life you infused into your meals. It will not be easy, and the sea will demand a price beyond that. What price? Mayowa asked, her voice trembling. Zarya swam closer, her face inches from Mayowa's. You will no longer be Mayowa the chef. You will become a creature of the sea, bound to its depths. The magic you sought to wield will no longer be yours, it will belong to the ocean. Mayowa's heart clenched. To give up her life, her craft, her very self, it was unthinkable. But the alternative was worse. She could already feel the sea pulling her toward it, her body responding to its call as if it had always belonged there. I will do it, Mayowa whispered, tears streaming down her face. She felt lost. The process was excruciating. Zarya led Mayowa to the water's edge, where she knelt in the surf and called upon the magic that had once filled her dishes. One by one, the spirits she had stolen began to emerge, wisps of light and shadow that floated above the waves like fragile bubbles. Each spirit carried the essence of the person it belonged to: a fisherman's courage, a child's laughter, a mother's love. Mayowa watched, guilt gnawing at her soul, as the spirits drifted back toward the village. For hours, Mayowa worked, her body trembling with exhaustion. With each spirit she returned, she felt a part of herself slipping away, the warmth in her chest, the strength in her arms, even the memories of her happiest days in the kitchen. By dawn, it was done. The last spirit vanished into the lightning sky, and Mayowa collapsed onto the sand. Zarya hovered above her, silent and watchful. It is finished, she said at last. The spirits are free, and the balance is restored. Mayowa tried to speak, but no words came. Her voice was gone, stolen by the sea along with her magic. She looked down at her hands and gasped. Her fingers were webbed, her nails sharp like the talons of a bird. Her legs fused together, shimmering as scales spread across her skin. No, she tried to scream, but it came out as a garbled cry. The sea has claimed you, Mayowa, Zarya said softly. You are no longer bound to the land. Your greed has made you one with the ocean. As the tide rose, Mayowa's transformation completed. Her body became sleek and powerful, her tail glittering with shades of gold and green. She felt the sea's currents tugging at her, calling her home. Zarya reached out, her expression unreadable. Come, Mayowa, the coral hearth awaits you. Perhaps in time, you will find peace in the depths. With no choice left, Mayowa followed Zarya into the waves. The water enveloped her, cold and endless, as the world above slipped away. In the village, the people wake up to find themselves changed. Their energy and joy had returned, their dreams no longer haunted by the sea. But when they looked toward the shore, Mayowa's restaurant was empty. Some said she had been cursed by the ocean, punished for her greed. Others whispered that she had become a mermaid, her spirit bound to the waves she once drew power from. And on quiet nights, when the moon hung low and silver over the water, villagers swore they could hear her voice, a song carried on the tide. Filled with longing and regret, Mayowa's story became a legend, a cautionary tale about the dangers of greed and the power of the sea. But deep beneath the waves, in the glowing caverns of the coral hearth, Mayowa swam. She no longer cooked, no longer tasted the magic she once craved. But she was part of the ocean, now a creature of its depths, forever bound to its mysteries.
Please remember to subscribe to this channel and give my video a thumbs up. And I'll see you in my next video soon. Thank you.